So the senior most batch that is present today is actually, the only member present from that batch today is Dr. P. Zach, and he'll just come up and say a few words on behalf of his batch.
This is the 70th anniversary of our entering the portals of this institution. At a time when almost all of you here were not born, and the parents of many of you were not born, so I am really an antediluvian. But today I am the batch. I am the only one who is present here. Now, almost all the alumni here have been my teachers. And one thing they know is I don't crack jokes during lectures. I tell stories, but I'm not very good at entertaining. But I felt that I'll be letting my batch down if I don't represent them on the stage here today. So I'm going to tell you a few vignettes from 1949, what CMC was like. Not the entire story, but just small scenes which may help you to visualize life at that time. Think of a time when the entire men's student body consisted of 40 people in 3 batches, as against about 150 women students. So you can imagine what kind of ragging we got and where we got it. But I'll mention just one experience during my admission, something about my student life and how we graduated. We were in the early days of the selection methods in CMC, and so for the 35 seats available at that time, about 60 students have been invited. We were actually invited to stay in the hostel because this was before the college year began, so there was space there and we were taken care of there. But I distinctly remember the time when the results were announced. So I'll just mention that. All 60 of us were asked to line up according to our numbers still on our chest so that we are readily identified. And the director and principal was Dr. Hilda Lazarus. She stood in a room with her private secretary by her side, who had a stack of envelopes. And we walked in one by one, and she would shake our hand and say, "Welcome to CMC," or "We are sorry we can't take you in this year." No public announcements, a personal encounter, and that was the welcome we received. Simple, dignified, personal. And that was our life through here. Now, when we 40 men students were here, there was no infrastructure for us. So we were put up in what was called servants' quarters, or one-storied. There are 3 one-storied houses built for staff, and then about 4 scattered cottages, and that is where we stayed. And to begin with, for the first term, we had our mess with the girls in the women's hostel. And of course, they followed the dividing system, and pretty soon the girls found that this is a losing thing if you divide equally with boys and girls. So we were asked to set up our own mess. But there literally was nobody in charge of us, and we had to manage by ourselves. So a shed was put up where the Vidyalayam school is now. A thatched roof, no side walls, just mesh, no doors, just open gap. And that was our common room and dining room. And all the arrangements were quite primitive even by those standards, the standards of that time. Now, please remember this is 1949, 2 years after independence. And so we were all young people brought up in the independence agitation. So after some time, we felt maybe we should agitate a little to get a better, and that was how Men's Hostel Union was formed. You can guess the background to this if you look at the word union. When is the word union used? Usually an association of people to make a claim, establish a right, or get something. So that was the spirit in which this union was formed. So we had, out of the 44 or 5 was selected as office bearers. And so we wrote up our minimum requirements. For instance, there were just 2 taps in the quadrangle for all of us to do our morning ablutions. So we had to queue up even to brush our teeth. And sometimes we'll splash water on somebody else, and so on it goes. So anyway, we wrote up our requests and went one night to see the director of principal, Dr. Hilda Lazarus. So with some hesitation, we passed this on to her. She read it straight away, looked at us in the eye and said, "Beggars are not choosers, you can go." But we did not want to agitate. We thought of ways around this. At that time, CMC was beginning to make a name in specialities, and it so happened that a Maharaja from one of the Rajasthan states was a patient in the putative little M ward. So we approached him to come and have Sunday lunch with us in our shed. And we thought something will come of this, that perhaps the Maharaja will be generous or something. But he gave a small donation and went off, so that was not a great success. But then we waited till the governing body was meeting here. The chairman at that time was a redoubtable gentleman called Sir Samuel Ranganathan, a very imposing figure with 3-piece suit and hat and all that. He was in the High Commission in Britain, returned to India. So surreptitiously, we approached him and tried the same tactics. Please come and have Sunday lunch with us. And of course, Dr. Lazarus didn't know about this, but then he told her on Sunday morning, I'm going to have lunch with the boys. So she also had to come. Now, here we are eating in this shed on enamel plates with a couple of mestambis and so on. And halfway through this process, Sir Samuel was so uncomfortable, he said, I am ill, can I go? But the message came through at the highest possible level that the men students are having a bad time. And so the next year, when Dr. Scudder celebrated her golden anniversary and a purse was presented to her, he said, this purse will be for the building of the men's hostel. And we went to the site, broke the ground, and in 2 years, the men's hostel came into being. But the men's hostel was not just a structure, it was a spirit of working together for self-governance. And of course, the girls were watching all this. So in 2 years' time, the Women's Hostel Association, not union, Women's Hostel Association came into being. If the students will look at the list of general secretaries, the Women's Hostel one starts in 1951, the Men's Hostel starts in 1949. But the education in Vellore is perhaps more in the hostels than in the lecture halls and laboratories. So how these two bodies developed their own self-governance is the real story. We who were participants in it were not really aware that we in fact were setting the pattern for what was to become the foremost private medical college in India. Now let me shift from my student days to the day we graduated. The graduation ceremony used to occur in what there was a there's an assembly hall, which is no more. It has been now cut up into 2 floors. I think the upper floor belongs to the SA. Is that right? Students Association. Anyway, that was where it occurred. And after we received the degree and came down, the first person to greet us was Dr. Ida Sofia Skada. She shook the hand of each of us and told us, now the college is yours, it is up to you to take it forward. And some of us took it as a personal challenge, and I am one of them, and thus I was able to stay on and be on the faculty and help in building up this institution. This personal invitation from the very founder of the institution really became a personal challenge for many of us. Now, what I would like to say to the present members of this community is that it is our privilege to be part of a huge tree which has been growing up for over 100 years. And living trees never stop growing. Every year, the leaves, the fruits add to it. So just as we may not have realized what we were starting, but which now is history in CMC, so you all also can make your contributions to this history of this living, loving institution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with us, and the background behind the Men's Hostel Union and the Women's Hostel Association. So guys, if you want anything out of anybody, you just call them for Sunday lunch.